Hello everyone, and welcome to this video on grief. So in this video, I'm just going to touch on the benefits grief can have in your life and how it can actually help you find yourself. How it can help you go home. So many of us are going through grief in many deep ways. It can be moving from your home to somewhere else and grieving that. It could be the loss of a loved one and grieving that. It could be the loss of money and grieving that, and maybe you have to start all over. So many things that make us grieve, but how can we handle it? How can we utilize it? Because grief can be the greatest teacher if you allow it to be. So something that I've noticed, when people grieve, they can either accept it and sit in it, or they can run away from it. If you don't resist grief, if you let grief flow in like a beautiful river that it really is, and if you can just sit here as a part of that river, just relaxing, neutral, then you can allow grief to flow through you and show you that stillness. Because this life, in many ways, is like a river. We're all drops moving along the same divine current. Some of us want to get out of the river and run our own path. Some of us want to try to swim back up river and go against the current. Some of us want to hurt other drops and this and that. And some of us just want to flow together joyously in the divine current that this entire creation flows upon. And so in the same way, grief can bring you back to the stillness, can bring you back to that subtlety that shows you that flow of life. So just because something's unfolding that is sad, that's making you cry, that feels negative, it can have a profoundly positive impact on your life if you just meet it. If you meet it. If you sit with grief and just accept grief. Yes, this sucks. I can't believe I lost this person or this money or this big change in my life. I can't believe it, this relationship, whatever. But I'm still here. I'm still alive. Let me sit with it and just sit in it. And you might cry and cry and cry, but you'll get to a point where the tears no longer work. The tears no longer matter. And there's something beneath that that is so deep, that is so profound, that it can bring you back to this current that the entire creation flows upon. And there will be no more resistance in you as you try to do this or try to do that, or you want to feel this, you want to feel that. You just allow life to flow and you feel what you feel about it. But you can just absorb yourself in that stillness. Because I think a lot of us who have been through grief, and sincere grief, because sometimes we can just be sad about something, but it's not actually grief, but sincere grief, where you're just frozen in it. Notice the stillness. Notice the stillness in that grief. Notice that stillness underlying the heartache. That stillness underlying the tears, a stillness that doesn't go anywhere, that just remains there. Notice that if you're going through grief, and you might be able to turn back in on yourself and notice yourself, because yourself is always joyous. Yourself is always at ease. It's always free of this grief. But when the grief is flooding in like a river, it kind of floods over top of that ease, and we think that we can never be at ease again, we can never be happy again because I'm constantly stuck with the thoughts and emotions that draw me back into grief. But there is that stillness underlying the grief. There is that stillness that you can touch, that you can become accustomed to, that you can befriend. Because that stillness, I'm telling you right now, that stillness does not know grief. That stillness does not know happiness. That stillness does not know anything other than absolute ease. And so for those of you going through sincere grief right now, I'm sure ease sounds pretty appealing, but you also might think that's not possible for you. But it is. And I can maybe do another video on this going into more depth, but think about it. When it comes to grief, what is it that's drawing you in? It's your thoughts and emotions. It's your thoughts and emotions that draw you into grief. And that can be so hard to untangle yourself from. It's like dipping your hand in honey and then trying to clean it with honey. It just it's a never-ending spiral of grief. But if you can really just notice, just have one moment of awareness when you're in that deepest place of grief, and notice the stillness. And you might recognize rather, the freedom that stillness holds, that freedom that stillness unlocks within you. And that stillness, that freedom rather, does not go anywhere. That freedom is a birthright to every human being on this planet, and is there whenever you need it. It's just that most of us don't think it's there, or we haven't been told it's there. We've been told it's in heaven out there, or it's with a God over there, or it's in a drug over there, and a drink over there, and a woman over there, or whatever. We think freedom's somewhere else. Freedom is here. And it's really like literally, it's behind these words, behind this body that you see. It's right there. And if you can catch it, if you can notice it even for a split second, grief will flow away like nothing ever happened, and you will be absolutely fine. So in this video, I don't really have any practical exercise that you could do. I have many other videos where I share meditations that you can try. But in this video, I'm just sharing with you, for those of you who actually know what I'm talking about when you're talking about that stillness of grief, when you have run out of tears, when you've run out of words, when you've run out of exclamations to yell, but when you're just sitting in that, can you notice that stillness that is beyond the thoughts and the sad memories, but the stillness? And if you notice that stillness, you'll find freedom. So grief can really be like a hack to spiritual growth. It really can be. Like you can attain in a second if you catch that stillness. Because that stillness is not affected by grief, nor happiness, nor anything. It's just stillness. And in that stillness, you open a doorway to the ultimate. You open a doorway to the divine.